it simple. Um, so what I mean by that is try not to overcomplicate it with what you're choosing to eat by finding things that you can combine that are very easy for you to track in the containers. So for example, for breakfast, the typical breakfast would be either I use a piece of Dave's bread, killer bread for my yellow, for my carb, um, scrambled eggs, and something that I make for the vegetable part. So I've chosen, and I will go into this in a second, to be following the time nutrition plan. And with that, you're very specific in the containers that you pair. So my breakfast typically is my pre-workout, since I work out in the morning. So I'm always pairing a red, which is my protein, a green, which is my veggie, and a yellow, which is my carb, and a teaspoon, which is a healthy fat. So I keep it simple still to this day because one, it's one of my favorites, but I go back and forth between having steel cut oats and eggs. And generally I will have like mushrooms, or I've done asparagus with my eggs, mix them in. I've mixed some veggies that I never thought I would ever mix with eggs, but it's a very easy, simple pairing in order to get those macronutrients. So, and then for my teaspoon, I get to have a little fun with that. Usually I'm a huge fan of peanut butter or almond butter. So I will typically even add that to my oatmeal or my toast. So if you can keep those pairings simple for all of the containers, it makes tracking super simple, and it helps you feel successful and not overwhelmed from the beginning. So my recommendation is to go as simple as you can with using the plan. Also, which Marybeth kind of touched on, I definitely don't recommend going through all the programs as fast as you can and spending massive hours. I recommend typically to just plan, especially if you have a busy day, like 15 minutes. If you can get a little bit more and you can go 20 or 30 minutes, great, but try to at least account for 15 minutes of time to watch videos. And so that might mean you get through one video because there's a few that are a little bit longer, or you might get through two videos because, you know, you've got 2 7-minute videos or whatever. That way you're able to process what you are hearing and find those tips of things. Because, you know, I've gone back through the videos and I've watched them when I've had people that are following this program, and I'm like, oh, like I totally didn't even pick up on that the last time. You each person kind of grabs onto those things that you're like, oh, I can do this, or that makes sense to me. And you know, so know that the first time through, you're not going to be an expert, and don't, you know, get frustrated with yourself if you, you know, you feel like you messed something up. Honestly, I just really don't feel like you can mess anything up that bad. If you're going with the basics and so you make a little error on something, you know, that's life. Don't beat yourself up. Let it go. And, you know, if you learn something that you shouldn't be doing, then, you know, try to incorporate that into your life if it works. The other tip that I was going to share is in terms of what I would consider like a best practice, is that you definitely need to plan. So I think for me, the biggest difference in UPF and 2B mindset is, since you have a certain number of containers to work with UPF, and if you go into time nutrition, it's even more specific because you have certain containers that are paired together. There's not flexibility on that. That you need to be planned for that. So find the day that works best for you. Sundays work fantastic for me. Since this whole quarantine business, I've had to be a little bit flexible on that. And sometimes it might mean that I need to get my act together on Friday or Saturday, so that when I am going to the store, or if I order my groceries, that I can make sure that I have the things that I need, or that I have that flexibility. Because I think we've all probably experienced where you wanted to get something and they didn't have that vegetable or didn't have that fruit available. And so you had to find something else that would work. So I think that's where keeping it simple in your plans for your meals will help you as well, because it's very easy for me to be like, oh, couldn't get mushrooms this week, but I can saute spinach and add it to my eggs, or I can saute asparagus and add it. Um, so definitely find that day. And sometimes you need to have 2 days, because I know at first planning for an entire week was super overwhelming for me. So I had to chunk it up into a few days. I could plan for 2 to 3 days and feel really good about that. And then I take a second day and I plan for the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 days. But definitely use the resources that are in UPF. Like I had just noticed, so I've been kind of bad about checking, because I've kind of got my routine set. And so I've been, following and my plan and just plugging along. But they actually posted a new 7-day meal plan with all of the brackets, A through F or A through E, whatever. I think it's A through F, and has like very specific meals, and it's already planned out for you. So you can use those resources and just make your planning even easier. If there's something you don't like maybe you don't do salmon or, any kind of fish or something like that, you could easily substitute that protein for something that you do, whether it's chicken or beef or turkey or whatever. So that's my advice with UPF, is to kind of start out with those things. And I think that you will find whether or not this plan is going to work for you. And if not, then maybe at that point, then you look at the 2B mindset and see if that's a little bit better plan for you or not. Or maybe you end up going back once you learn the both. Then you can make a decision for sure. Like, maybe I didn't give UPF a solid try the first time. Let me see if I can go back and make this work. But if you can print off the blank templates, if that works for you, or you can just, I've even used just notebook paper, and I've planned my days like Monday, breakfast, lunch, dinner, my 2 snacks, meal 1 through 5 or 6 if you have a 6th one, and have it broken down that way. And I put the containers, which I know the charts that you can print off have the containers that you can fill in. So you can very easily fill in the food that's going to fill those containers. And if you go about planning that way, I think breaking it down that way will make it simple enough that you don't get overwhelmed. And you always have us coaches to reach out to if you're struggling with finding a combination, because I know sometimes, well, in the beginning, I have to say my mindset has changed. I never had a vegetable for my breakfast. So at first, I was kind of really struggling with what in the world am I going to want to eat in the morning that's even going to sound good. And then seeing some ideas, I'm like, oh yeah, well that sounds like it would be great. I've had an omelet before with vegetables in it, but it's not something that I used to do often. So it just kind of left my mind, and I didn't even think about it as being a good combination. So, you can reach out and you can say, hey, I'm struggling with finding a combination of my protein, my vegetable, my healthy fat, and my carb. Anybody have any recommendations for what you do? Oh, and the other last thing I was going to say, sorry.
No, I had a question for you, but I'll.
Okay. The other last thing that I was going to say in terms of the meal planning is that, and I'm just totally having mom brain. I just lost my thought. So go ahead and ask your question.
Well, I was just going to say the flexibility you mentioned is great, because you changing things up in as you learn about both programs, you see you can add different things in. You can switch out those vegetables, you can switch out those fruits, you can change up a recipe. So even for our group this week, if you'd already done your grocery shopping when you looked at the meal plan for people that came late, I think, is Marybeth frozen again? She's not moving.
I think she might be.
She's pretty.
So, yeah, at least it's not a frozen face like.
I said, just make it work. Like instead of a pita for my lunch yesterday, I had an Ezekiel tortilla in my freezer, and I just changed things up to make it work so I was kind of staying on the plan, but I was using what I had. And it's like when you go grocery shopping and they don't have, like, that's why I'm a budget shopper when I go grocery shopping. I do not go with one list to one store and get everything. Because if it's, I never buy a box of cereal at full price because you can always get it on sale. Just stock up when it's on sale. So it's finding ways. Hi.
I don't know what's going on.
Using the flexibility that you can actually learn by doing all the parts of these programs, and it helps you. And as you eat healthier longer, you learn how to be flexible as well. So, okay, well, pork and chicken's on sale this week, so I'm going to make recipes with these. And you can look in flyers, you can look online before you go to the store. And for me, I think in both plans you can do it to a degree. If you don't want to plan out all your meals, just have the basics for breakfast and lunch and plan your dinner. Dinners are really the most important to have a rough idea. And there's meal plans in both programs. There's meal plans in our group. There's recipes. Both programs have monthly. Actually, I guess it's all combined now. There's sometimes meal plans put in there. There's new recipes put in. You can find recipes on the blog. Pinterest for me is a big place to find recipes. Just going in and plugging in the ingredients I have and roughly what I want to make. But especially now that Caitlin's eating vegan, I have to look for a lot of recipes rather than serving her tofu or a veggie burger every night to go with whatever else. So I'm learning to be a lot more plant-based, which is good. It's probably good for all of us in our family, except we just got half a cow in our freezer. So, so I'm like, okay, we're having beef twice this week. So plant-based with.
Yes. And I think also I don't make separate meals for my family. I don't know if that came up at all, but I can't do that. So I tried to make all of the meals. I at least keep it really simple. Like I don't make big, like fancy things. It's usually like greens, some kind of protein, like I love salads. I love that. But what I'll do is my kids have to have everything separate, tomato, it's like ridiculous with their ranch dressing, which by the way, UPF has an amazing homemade ranch dressing. That's super easy to make. But yeah, sometimes they'll have their Hidden Valley, whatever, but I'm not going to make a totally separate meal for them. And this all, I feel like UPF and I'm sure 2B, they're pretty family friendly. And I cut the snacks out of my house. I'm like, my kids, some of the stuff that they were eating is just, it's junk. It's junk, I kind of did a little gut check, on myself, why am I even having this in my house for my kids? They don't need this. So just focusing more, I've been putting the veggies out on the table 5 minutes before dinner. And that's really helped. That's made a difference because then it's like, okay, because then they leave the veggie till last. And then it's like, how many do I have to eat? And so now it's just, they're hungry. And so I put that on the table, maybe with some hummus or something. And then they get rolling with that. So the time we have the rest of the dinner, they've already had their vegetable. That's been really helpful. But just kind of finding what's going to work for you and something that you can sustain. But Michelle, I had a question for you. Did you start with timed nutrition?
My first experience with the containers was 21-day fix.
Okay.
And so then just working within the program of the number of containers and pairing it however I wanted to, as long as I used all the containers.
Okay. Okay.
So when I started 80-day though, then I did go to Time Nutrition because I thought it sounded interesting to try it. And I like the idea of taking out the guesswork of how I'm going to put my containers together.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I went into that, and I will have to say it is a game changer. The energy that you feel naturally for your workouts, fueling your body the right way, it works for me.
It's a great, the time nutrition is really designed for people who want to train like an athlete, you know, using food as fuel, you know, for energy throughout the day and all that. And yeah, like I think some people think it's more like restrictive, but at the same, well, or it doesn't require really more planning because it's already planned for you, right? So it's almost easier in that way. Although in the videos, it sounds like Autumn says to start with foundational fix, and then once you get that, if you want to move into time nutrition. So I guess whatever works for you, whatever people can sustain, but I like that idea. And then there's one other piece of the color containers, and that's carb cycling. And that's if you want to shed, you know, you only do it for like 3 weeks at a time, and if you want to shed like you know, a certain amount of weight for a wedding or something, you can do that. But that's kind of, you know, depleting some of the carbs. Like you do like a rotation, but you don't need to know all that. But there are different programs within the UPF. So yeah, there's so much to offer. And that's the thing I love. The beauty is that these, you know, either program works beautifully. It's just what you're willing to put the work into and to really learn and take action on every day. And that you're not, you know, pissed off and thinking you're on a diet. That's not, because that you can't sustain. So we want to find something that is going to keep you happy, keep your family happy, and not feel like, you know, you're just eating, you know, cabbage all day or whatever. I promise you're not. Most people think it's too much food. Most people think UPF is too much food. And I've had 2 people now tell me I keep gaining weight, and but I'm not really eating a lot. I'm like, that's why you're gaining weight. Because you're not eating enough. Your body is going to store, you know, that fat and hold on to it. It's going to keep it, because if you're not giving yourself enough, you know, healthy macro, you know, the macronutrients, it's not going to happen. So yeah, very interesting though about weight loss, because really not eating or eating way less is not going to help.
Truth. Oh, and I remember my mom brain, what I forgot that I was going to say. Was going to be talking about dinner. So Nicola, thanks, because you reminded me of what I was going to say. I say the dinners are probably the most difficult thing in the beginning with UPF, because if you're working within containers and you're trying to feed your family, trying to find something that works. So 1, keep it simple, but 2, you don't want dinners to be so completely boring necessarily, at least not all the time. I'm lucky, very fortunate that my kids like salad. So I can easily throw out salad and put my protein and, you know, my healthy fat, my dressing, whatever, to make that dinner work for my containers. So, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to have some of those other more fun but healthy type meals that a lot of people that I know generally make for dinner. So I say try to find 1 recipe a week in the our cooking show, the Fix8. I'm like, and Fix8, and find something that will work that you can then add into your meal plan. And slowly but surely, then you'll have multiple things that you can choose from for dinner. The other thing is, and again, my family doesn't mind. We generally do repeat meals like a couple days. I have like a leftover or 2 leftover type days. So, and Autumn even talks about it, like Monday, Wednesday are the same meal plan, and Tuesday, Thursday are the same meal plan. So then that way you've got something, and Tuesday and Thursday are different than Monday and Wednesday. So you've got something different, but then you're also using up your leftovers, and you're not having the same thing all week long, which definitely will get boring and monotonous. But you know, like before all this, I did things like Taco Tuesday, which I still do Taco Tuesday with my kids. And so, you know, Tuesday kind of that's our dinner, and everybody for the most part doesn't get tired of Mexican for dinner. So, you know, if you can find little things like that, you have very easy planning for those days. and then you're only switching up, you know, a couple dinners a week, which will make it a lot easier on you. So that was what I was going to say.
One other tip that I just, when you were talking about that, Michelle, about dinners in terms of planning, Autumn was saying that when you have a more elaborate recipe to, when you're planning, if you're going to have something kind of with more containers and like kind of, you know, maybe like a half a green and a half, you know, kind of weird measurements, she said to make sure that you map that out backwards. So start with dinner, and then she checks off what, like, I know we're going to have the spaghetti squash casserole, and that is a half a blue, one red, you know, and she starts there, because otherwise, if you work the other way, then you might get to dinner and then go, oh, wait, I only have this left. So I like that idea of like kind of, you know, mapping it backwards, starting with dinner, and then the other stuff, you can make it fall in line if you have your dinner plan. So that was something that stuck out to me this time. 3 times viewing, 3 times, and I still didn't get it. So you get something every time, you really do. So, all right. Well, we want to wrap it up here. Jenny, do you have questions?
No, I think you answered them. I was just concerned a little bit about my family of, okay, great. I've gone, you know, thinking, okay, I'm going to start a new program. And then I'm thinking, well, then so are they.
Yes.
And are they game?
But it won't, it won't feel like that. You should look, I don't know how old your kids are, but I would look, if you look in Ultimate Portion Fix, there's an entire module that's called Family Fix. And it, like, she talks about, you know, there's all different videos in there, so you can check those out. Those might be helpful for you. Yeah, because you don't want it to be like your kids or your family's like, oh, she's on this annoying thing, you know. Just you'll be able to make regular things, you know. My kids know the containers, but I've been doing it for years. But it's not like, I've never heard my kids say my mom's on a diet, you know. Not view it as a diet. We're just kind of shifting our lifestyle and improving ourselves a little bit each week, and let's see how we do.
Although sometimes when you're using containers and you've measured your food out perfectly and your kid tries to steal some,
you're like,
back off.
Back off my food.
Back home,
especially the blues, right?
That's why Susie worked better for me, because I could share better.
This is my food.
Touch and you die.
What did you say?
We've had those days.
I said touch and you die.
Exactly. Exactly. My kids won't, because I love flavor. I mix everything together, and they're like, can I have, the chicken is touching my cucumber, I can't eat it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I am so glad my kids grew out of that stage, because both of my boys did that. Oh my gosh, it was so annoying.
Yeah, my 12-year-old, God love him, he is the greatest kid.
I have one still there. The others are okay.
Can you listen?
Yeah, I know.
It's been over
Okay,
an
my
hour now.
babysitter wants to clock out. My 12-year-old.
Okay, I will upload what I recorded and post it a little later. So
You're awesome.
put them under.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you for today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.